Hello everyone, welcome to Asura Psych. Happy New Year, and I hope you had a good holiday season, whatever holiday you might have been celebrating, if you celebrated any at all. To start off the new year, which is nice because it's finally the end of 2020, which has been the longest year for many people, I wanted to talk about something that's usually talked about this time of year, which is goal setting, and specifically how goal setting can be different for different types of personalities or different types of people. Now, I am going to relate this a little bit to personality types, like with MBTI, but I want to talk about this generally with more general personality types and styles, where you're going to see that certain types of people with certain types of mindsets are going to have an easier time setting goals in a certain manner compared to others. Let's get into it. So to talk about goal setting, first we need to kind of understand the basic psychology around goal setting. Now, goal setting is something that primarily belongs to the organizational or business psychology branch of psychology. Surprisingly, it's not something that's terribly connected to most forms of mental health psychology, even though it's used a lot in things like cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's something that's usually used in like business coaching, things of that nature, that type and branch of psychology. That said, there are systems that they use and methods that they use for helping people set goals that are going to actually be achievable to them. And the number one system that is used for most people when setting goals is the SMART system. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And each one of these things in this specific order allows people to set goals that are going to be actually attainable for them, something that they can work towards. And we're going to go over each of these letters and discuss why it's important to view goals through this lens. So let's start off with the S, which is specific. So why is it important to set a specific goal compared to, say, a generalized goal? Well, when you set a specific goal, you allow yourself to have some sort of clear destination instead of just throwing out some sort of thing that you'd like into the air. So take, for example, one of the most common goals for New Year's in America is, I would like to lose weight. This, in and of itself, is not a good goal to set. If your goal is just to lose weight, you're not setting yourself a good goal. Why? Because it's not specific. You should put some sort of number on that goal. You should say, I'd like to lose this amount of weight, or I'd like to get this many subscribers for my YouTube channel, for example, is a goal that I set for myself last year. When you are setting goals for yourself, you want to make sure that you have something that you can see and set that's realistic to you. You don't want to just have some sort of general idea of the thing that you want. The more you think about and narrow down a goal that you're working towards, the more you're going to be able to effectively plan and work towards achieving that goal. Now let's move down the list to M, which stands for measurable. So you'll notice as I go down the list that each one of these things tends to build upon the last one. So for example, it's hard to have a measurable goal if it's not also specific. And it's important to go down this list in this order when you're setting these goals to make sure that you follow all these steps in this order and really understand the goal that you're trying to set for yourself. So what is a measurable goal and why is it important? Well, a measurable goal just means that your goal has some sort of metric associated with it that you can use to track your progress towards achieving that goal. So say, for example, if we went back to weight loss as an example, we would be able to use the weight that we've lost as a measurable metric towards that goal. Because your goal is specific, you have some sort of way of measuring your progress towards it. This can apply for other goals as well, though. Say, for example, your goal was to apply to 5 different places in the month of January. Well, then you could use each one of your applications that you've put in as a metric to see where you are in relation to that goal. Your goal may not be to actually get any jobs. It's just to start off simple and say, hey, I want to put in this many applications, and that is the goal. At least I'm getting my foot in the door. I'm getting myself out there. Because you have something measurable, you're more likely to put more progress towards it. The human mind likes to have something that it can work towards. It likes to have some sort of finite point. If your goal was to say just put in some applications somewhere, you're going to be a lot less likely to want to pull through with that goal or to work towards achieving that goal. The human mind likes to have something that it can reasonably work towards. Next is A, which stands for attainable. Now, in my opinion, this is the single most important one in the SMART goal system. And attainable means that you're setting a goal that is realistic for yourself. It's something that you can actually achieve. You're not aiming too high. And I don't want people to try and lowball themselves when they're setting goals, but the important thing is that you set a goal that's actually somewhat realistic for you. It's somewhat attainable. Because if you set a goal that's far outside of your reach, the odds are that you're going to see almost no progress towards reaching that goal, and then you're going to end up giving up and not want to pursue the goal any further. So say, for example, if you set your goal to be a millionaire by the end of the year, what are the odds of you actually becoming a millionaire by the end of the year unless you're already somebody who has a ton of money. If you're just an average person who makes a little bit of money, the odds are not very high, and therefore you're not going to work as hard to try and achieve those goals. And even if you do, the odds of you achieving that goal are not going to be very high. So the important thing is to set a goal that's realistic and attainable for you as an individual. Now, if you said to yourself, I would like to save $5,000 this year, that might be a reasonable goal for someone who works a full-time job or a salaried job. You might be able to say, okay, if I put in this much money a month into my savings account, then I can save this much money throughout the year. That is a reasonable goal. When you set a goal that is attainable for yourself and within your realm of possibility, you put yourself and your mind into a positive feedback loop. And positive feedback loops are one of the most important things when setting goals and working towards positive things in psychology. When you achieve something small in relation to your goal, your mind treats it as if you are actually completing the goal in and of itself a lot of the times. So let's say if you set a goal to lose 10 pounds and you lost 5, your brain says, wow, I've lost 5 pounds. Look how motivated I am. Look how good I can do. Let me keep doing this and I can move towards reaching that goal. And you'll often find that then you're able to exceed the goal that you originally set if you want to, because you're in such a good positive mental state and the feedback loop is helping you progress further and further. That's what happened to me when I lost weight 4 or 5 years ago. When I decided I wanted to lose some weight, I set out to lose about 50 pounds and I ended up losing about 90. And to me, it was because I found myself going down that positive feedback loop and allowing myself to achieve these smaller goals one at a time that were attainable to me. R in the SMART goal system stands for relevant, and this one might seem kind of simple, and I think this is actually one of the easier ones when it comes to setting goals for yourself. It stands for relevant, and this means that you need to be setting a goal that is important to you and not something that someone else wants you to do. If you're going to be setting a goal, it needs to be something that you as an individual want to do and it's meaningful to you, because the mind just simply won't usually work towards something that's not important to itself. If it's not important to you, you're going to have a hard time trying to make yourself do the things related to that. And this is something that can change with maturity and age when it's related to how you want to get things done or what you want to achieve in life. And you can find extreme shifts in your personality that will allow you to work towards things that you didn't want to work towards before. So say, for example, when in high school, I was a straight D student and someone who nearly failed out of high school. Then I went to college for a few years and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Then after I took some time off, found myself and found my passion, I went back to college and was a straight A student. Once you find what you want to do and your goal is relevant and important to you as an individual, you will find that your mind is going to put a lot more effort and energy into achieving that goal. So when you set goals for yourself, make sure it's something that you as an individual actually want to do. It's something that's really meaningful to you and not just something that you kind of want to do. If you set those kind of goals, you're going to find that you're only going to get kind of results. So it's important to set relevant and meaningful goals for yourself. Lastly, we have T, which stands for time bound. And this one also might seem kind of simple, but it's something that a lot of people overlook when setting goals for yourself. Say, for example, if you want to set the goal to lose weight for yourself, if you just say the goal in and of itself is, I'd like to lose weight this year, that's not really a time-bound goal. You're not really setting any realistic time restrictions for yourself. And therefore, you're not putting your mind into that state where it's going to be kind of pressured and want to work towards getting this thing by a certain time or day. So when you're achieving and working towards things that you want to work towards, you want to make sure that when you're setting these time restrictions, they're also going to be something that's also realistic and attainable, as we said earlier in the SMART system. You don't want to say, I'd like to lose 10 pounds in a week. You want to say, maybe in the first month of the year, I'd like to lose 10 pounds, or I'd like to put XXX amount of money into savings. It's important when you're setting these time restrictions to also take into account all of the other steps in the SMART system. Because if you're not going to allow yourself to have the attainable part of the time restrictions, then you're also going to struggle to meet those goals. And once you struggle and you start to fail repeatedly in your goals, then you're going to find that you're going to be much more likely to just quit and give up on the goals altogether. Which isn't to say that if you miss a deadline in your time-related goal, you should just stop. But when you have highly unrealistic goals and you continuously are missing these deadlines that you've set for yourself, then you're more likely to give up altogether. So it's important to allow yourself to have small victories along the way. And you can do this by setting time restrictions that are reasonable and attainable within the specific goal that you want to work towards. One final thing that's important to remember in SMART goals, and this goes alongside the measurable aspect, is also another M, which is method. You need to make sure you're going to understand the method in which you're going to go about achieving the goal that you've set for yourself. And it's important when you're setting your SMART goal to have a method laid out, something that you can do kind of routinely to make sure that your goal is going to be something that is reasonably attainable to you. So let's look at an example of a SMART goal versus a not SMART goal, and one that has a good method and one that doesn't. So say, for example, a bad goal would be to say, I would like to get an A in this class. And then that's it. That's just the goal. I want to get an A in this class, and that's my goal. What are you going to do to work towards that goal? Are you going to check yourself along the way? What milestones can you achieve? What methods are you going to use to achieve that goal? You haven't set any of these things for yourself, so you're likely going to put less work in when it comes to achieving that goal. Now let's look at a good SMART goal that reflects the same thought process. I'd like to achieve an A in this class, so I'm going to use the midterm as a milestone for checking my progress. For the first half of the class towards the midterm, I'm going to spend 30 extra minutes a day studying for this class. And that means that when I get to the midterm, if I get the grade that I like or the grade that I want, I will continue to use this method until the second half of the class. If I do not get the grade that I would like, then I will up my study time from 30 minutes to 1 hour. And that will allow me to at least make some sort of progress towards the goal that I want, or at least be better off than I was before. This is an example of a SMART goal. It is realistic, it's attainable, it's something that you've applied thought and you have a method for. When you allow yourself to have these kinds of steps towards achieving your goal, your mind is going to say, okay, this is what I can do on the daily to make sure that I'm working towards this thing that's important to me. And once you start to see the minor successes along the way, then you enter that positive mental feedback loop where your mind says, great, I've achieved something, I'd like to achieve more because this makes me feel good. And that's going to allow you to work even harder and have more success when achieving your goals. Now let's talk a little bit about personality and personality type and how it can relate to goal setting. So when you're talking about goal setting and personality, you want to recognize that certain personalities and certain personality types are going to be more likely to set certain goals for themselves, but also more likely to work towards certain goals if it's something that is competitive or non-competitive to them. It's something that's meaningful to them for different reasons. So say, for example, you are an EJ personality type in the Myers-Briggs system. This could be an ENTJ or an ESFJ, any of these types. You'll likely find that these types tend to set higher goals for themselves and hold themselves to higher standards when it comes to their goals. And this is because as extroverted judging dominant types, they're the types who are going to say, okay, what external metric can I use to make sure that I'm achieving my goal, and what can I compare myself to make sure that this goal is being met? And this is often why these specific types have the highest conscientiousness when it comes to Big Five. They're the types who tend to aim the highest and shoot the highest when it comes to their goals, because for them it's important to be successful by some sort of external metric. If you're an EJ and you want to set good goals for yourself, my number one method would be to have someone who is on the outside who can help be your external factor for measurement, which is to say that someone else who's going to hold you reliable to achieve your goal, or someone that you can compare yourself to if you want to make sure that you're achieving your goal by some sort of external metric. This doesn't mean that you should be comparing yourself to someone else and being upset if you don't achieve whatever it is that they have, but it is saying, look at this other thing that I would like to be like. How can I work hard to achieve this thing that I would like to be like? And can this person who is important to me hold me accountable to this if I frequently talk to them about the thing that's important to me? On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the IP personality types, INTPs, ISFPs, any of these four. So these types struggle with the opposite issue in that they usually score the lowest on conscientiousness in Big Five. And it's not that these types are not motivated towards achieving their goals. That's not the case at all. What this means is that these types are usually less likely to set goals that are going to have some sort of external metric that is measurable, that can be seen as important via society itself. So say, for example, the EJs, again, are going to be the types who set goals that are meaningful to a societal standard. Why is it important to achieve this thing? And will society see me as important if I achieve this thing? It's some sort of metric that others can see them and their value for. IPs tend to admire personal value. They're not less likely to seek out some sort of admiration or things along those lines, verification from other people. IPs want to know that they themselves have done a thing that's important to them. Now, the issue that IPs often face when they're setting goals is that they don't allow themselves to pick and really really define the goal that they want to set for themselves. They're less likely to write out the things that are important to them along the way when it comes to achieving their goal. They don't really allow themselves to really strictly define the thing that is the goal in and of itself. They might be more likely to kind of say, this is my goal, and work on something for a week or two, and then go, oh wait, no, this is interesting to me, and then work on that, and then go, oh no, wait, this is interesting to me, and then that process just kind of keeps repeating itself. They're less likely to stick with one goal in and of itself because they are shifting. They like to have different things going on. They don't want to dedicate their entire life to one process. So it's important, if you're an IP, if you really have a long-term goal that you want to set for yourself, to really do your best to make some sort of plan or method for achieving that goal. Now, I actually personally recommend, if you're an IP personality type, to set smaller goals for yourself and do that more frequently, which is to say, instead of an EJ, who I would recommend they set one kind of larger goal, then really work towards that over the course of a few months, I would say for an IP, set a bunch of smaller goals along the way, each of them being a final goal in and of itself. And once you finish that goal, immediately allow yourself to set up for the next version of that goal or the next step along the way. And that kind of mindset might be better for allowing you to work towards achieving your goals. Next up are the EPs, so the ESFPs, the ENTPs, any of these types. Now, EPs, in my opinion, are the hardest type when it comes to goal setting because for them, they are usually not very interested in setting extremely long-term goals for themselves. And this just could be from the perspective of an IJ myself. But I like to set very long-term goals for myself. EPs tend to have these much shorter goals, or when they do have a longer goal, it's something that's extremely internalized to them and something that represents more so their personality and something that they want to achieve more long-term. I think this is most seen in like the archetype of the hero in fiction, where you have like the ESFP hero who says, I want to be a hero, and they can't exactly set some sort of meaningful goal towards that progress, but it's something that deep down is important to them and something that they will work towards throughout their entire life. Now, with ESFPs, when it comes to goal setting, my recommendation is very close to the IPs, where you want to have more so these kind of smaller goals that reflect the overarching thing that's important to you. Now, with EPs in general, you want to make sure that each of your actions in your daily life is going to be reflective of the goal that you want to work towards, which is to say that you want to build daily habits that reflect the thing that is important to you. Because EPs are such an interactive and reflexive type when it comes to their environment, the world, the people that they interact with, I don't think it's going to be healthy mentally for them to sit down and work out a specific set of time every single day that they need to be working on something. For them, they like to be more freeform and fluid. What I would recommend for EPs is to allow yourself to have some sort of time or period that is loose, say for example 30 minutes to an hour a day, where you can do anything related to your goal. Which is to say, unlike an IJ who might say, I'm going to spend these 30 minutes studying, I would recommend an EP to say, I'm going to spend these 30 minutes doing something related to my goal. See, if it's school, then it would be something related to school. Maybe it could be studying, maybe it could be going over some old notes, maybe it could be reading something related to the topic. It doesn't have to be exclusively some specific type of studying. But allowing yourself to have these open slots of times where you can fill those times with meaningful actions that you can decide then and there what you want to do, I think is going to be very important for EPs because they don't like to be constrained. If you constrain an EP, they're going to get burnt out very quickly. It's important to allow EPs the time and freedom they need when working towards their goals. Lastly, we have the IJs. And IJs are quite interesting because they are a type, much like the EJs, tend to be kind of high in productivity, high in conscientiousness, but also a lot like the IPs, they can be kind of selfish in their desires when it comes to their goals. Their goals are going to be more so reflective of them as an individual and what's important to them. Now, one thing I've noticed with IJs when setting goals is that if it's something that they care about, they will usually put a lot of effort into achieving it. But if it's something that they don't care about, they won't put any effort into achieving it, or they'll struggle to keep up even the most basic amount of effort for those things. It's usually very all or nothing, I've noticed, with the IJ personality types. Now, ISJs might have a little bit of an easier time because they're more likely to set themselves into some sort of routine, but the INJs are going to struggle the most with this because to them, it's important for this goal to be meaningful. And if it's not meaningful, it's going to be something that they're going to neglect. So when it comes to IJ goal setting, I would say that it's important to just allow yourself to work on setting these SMART goals. And the step that you need to work on is making sure that it's relevant and reasonable to you, but also the attainable aspect. Because a lot of times IJs will set very grandiose goals for themselves, and they might have, much like the ESFPs, they might have these longer term kind of general goals, but they might forget to do the smaller steps along the way, even though these are things that they can personally do quite well. I know for me, one thing that I've struggled with along the way and in my life, and this had to do with my weight loss journey as well, was things like basic hygiene or basic physical health. These types of activities like brushing my hair, sometimes brushing my teeth, these types of things are things that I struggle to do daily because I just forget. I just forget to do all the things that a person should be doing daily. And instead of saying, okay, I need to do these things, 2 times a day, every single day of the week, you start small by saying, okay, I need to start working on and focusing on my physical health, and maybe I should do these things a couple times a week because a little bit is better than nothing. And that's one of the basic aspects of like cognitive behavioral therapy. And again, it goes into the idea of setting positive feedback loops for yourself. When you start down the path of a little bit is better than nothing, then you start to realize that you can do a little bit, then you can do a lot. So if you go on a few walks a week instead of saying, I need to go on a 2-mile walk every single day of the week, then you allow your brain to get into that positive state. It becomes more of a physical and mental routine for you, and you're going to want to repeat these activities in your free time, and you're going to want to keep achieving this success over the long term as well. All right, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion on SMART goals and how that can affect personality and personality types. Let me know what your goals for 2021 are down in the comment section below. Now, I know 2020 was a crazy year, so if you are at a point right now where you aren't setting any goals for yourself, I completely understand. I'm not trying to pressure you into setting goals for yourself or saying that you should be setting some sort of goal for yourself, but a lot of people around this time of year are, and if you are someone who is setting goals for yourself, I hope you are able to set them in a realistic and meaningful way, and you're able to work towards them and actually achieve them. So with that said, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. Let me know down in the comment section below. I would like to remind everybody that I do have personality typing sessions available at my website, asuraspsych.com, if you're interested in working with me to find out what your personality type is and what that means for you. This has been Asura at Asura Psych. Have a good one.